So I'm going to talk about some really cool features of our pelvis. So first of all, the pelvis is not a fixed structure. It is a series of bones that are held together by joints, ligaments, and pieces of cartilage. So you can see a big joint right here, right, on both sides. Right here is a big thick piece of cartilage. So if anybody has some discomfort right over that pubic bone here, that's because this piece of cartilage is really getting a good workout when we're in our third trimester of pregnancy. Back here is our sacrum and our tailbone. If I turn it this way, you can see a little bit better, right? These are all, you've got that big joint that's right in here. Okay. During the third trimester of pregnancy, your body releases a hormone called relaxin, and relaxin's job is to do exactly what it sounds like. Relax the joints and ligaments and pieces of cartilage that hold that pelvis nice and together and tight and secure. Now, once it's relaxed, it allows this pelvis to be able to move and expand to allow the baby to be able to pass through during the birth process. Now, it's impossible to look at somebody from the outside and guess how much space is available in their pelvis, because from the outside, all we can see is from here to here, which doesn't give us any relevant information. The information we're looking for is the space inside the pelvis itself, which is called the inlet. So this is the inlet of the pelvis right here, because this is where the baby comes in. On the bottom side, this is the outlet, because this is where the baby comes out, right? So inlet, outlet. This is the space that we are concerned with, and I'm going to show you how we can maximize that space and help our pelvis do the job that it was designed to do. All right, so let's talk about a couple of special features that might help you understand how to work with your pelvis. So inlet. The inlet of the pelvis, where the baby comes in, is widest from side to side, left to right. That's the widest part of the inlet. On the outlet, the widest part is from front to back, this way. Why is that important? Because when your baby comes through the pelvis, the widest part of your baby is going to be their shoulders. So wide shoulders have to fit through the widest part of the pelvis this way, and then they have to turn in order to fit through the widest part of the pelvis this way, right? So like a nice little corkscrew through there. Well, if you're lying flat on your back, your baby has no help in making that twist and turn. However, if you are up moving around, you're walking, you're swaying, maybe you're dancing, maybe you're leaning, maybe you're lunging, you're doing all of those things, you're squatting, you're doing all of those things that help that baby to make those turns through the pelvis. Okay, so that's the first thing. We really want to be mobile as much as we're comfortable so that our pelvis can work efficiently. The next part I want to show you is this back here, the back of our pelvis. This is our sacrum. All right, so the sacrum actually will pop out about 2 centimeters during pushing. And so that gives 2 extra centimeters for your baby to come through. Now, when you're lying on your back like this, you aren't going to get, right? You're going to have this pushing back against it. So we're like inhibiting that sacrum from pushing out and giving us extra space that our pelvis needs. Partners, just funny little side note, during labor, if your person is laboring in some sort of upright position, as you near the end of labor, you'll actually see a little bump in the lower part of the back where that sacrum is really bulging out. And so some nice massage will feel good there. Some people like the feel of some counter pressure against it. Maybe something cool or something warm will also feel good. But that sacrum will give us some extra space for the baby. The other thing why we don't want to be lying on our back is because of this tailbone right here, right? So if you can see, this person would be lying on their back, and that tailbone is actually pointing upward. If this person were giving birth, that baby's going to come through. They're going to have to defy gravity, go up over top of that tailbone and come out in order to navigate over the coccyx there. So being more in an upright position will allow that baby to come down with some gravity. Now, let's talk about some space with this outlet down here. There are a couple of things that we can do to increase this space. Number one is squatting. So what I want you to do is I want you to take your thumb, and we're not doing an internal exam here. We're doing this all on the outside. And if you want to wait until you have some more privacy, go into the bathroom. That's a great place to do this exercise. You're going to take your thumb and place it right on where you think this big piece of cartilage is, this pubic bone. You might have heard it called that over time. All right. We're going to place our thumb right there. We're going to reach between our legs to try to find where we can feel the tailbone. Okay, it's going to look like this. Now again, we're not doing anything internal. You're just going to kind of feel around till you feel that bony prominence kind of sticking out. And you'll feel the space might be about that wide. You're going to do this standing. I should have said that at the beginning. You're going to be standing up and just feeling this. Next, what I want you to do is I want you to squat. So sit down, perhaps on the toilet, or just squat, stand in back of a chair and kind of hold on and do that squat. And then I want you to do the same measurement. What you'll feel is when you squat, this whole sacrum is going to swing back out. And so when you're like trying to reach for it, it will, if you're even able to grab it, most people aren't even able to grab it. That's how far back it swings. But if you are able to grab it, you'll notice it is significantly more room in that outlet. So ways to give yourself more space in the outlet of the pelvis is squatting. So we're not going to be on our back. We're going to be moving as best we can as long as we're comfortable to do that and we're able to do that. And anytime we have that chance to squat to let that baby have more space in the outlet, we're going to do some squatting. I want to point out another feature of the pelvis here, and that's this little bump right here on this side and this little bump on this side. If we draw an imaginary line straight across from these bumps, these are called ischial spines. If we draw that imaginary line right there, you will find that this is the most narrow part of the pelvis. Your provider will be measuring during labor where your baby's head is in relation to this imaginary line, which is the most narrow part. That's called finding the station of the baby. So where this imaginary line is, we call that zero station. Anything above that line is the negative range, and anything below that line is the positive range. During pregnancy and for a pretty long time during labor, your baby is going to be in the negative range. So -1, -2, -3, right? The higher up the number, the higher up the baby is away from that zero station. Once your baby's head has hit zero station, that tells us that the baby is now in the most narrow part of the pelvis. Once the baby drops below the zero station, they are now in the positive range. So we are talking +1, +2, +3, +4. +4, we're seeing baby head. +5, baby's head is out, and we are expecting you to be holding that baby very, very soon. Why do we measure station? Well, it tells us that your baby has passed through the narrow part of the pelvis, and we are expecting this baby to arrive any moment now. Okay. The other part of the pelvis I want to talk to you about is your sits bones. That's these right here. These are the bones that we should be sitting on. Now, many of us, myself included, we tend to sit back. We're a little bit on the lazier side. And when we sit back, we're actually sitting right on our sacrum, and that gives us a lot of backache. And so we don't want to do that, particularly during labor for a variety of other reasons. But right now we're going to focus on for comfort reasons. We want to be sitting upright. So we want to roll forward and sit on those sits bones. So if you could do that for me right now, roll forward, sit on your sits bones. Now, you'll find that when you do that, your posture has automatically improved. So you went from this to, which is more slouchy, to more upright and a better posture. What I want you to do now is I want you to take your hands. What I want you to do now is I want you to take your hands. I'm going to put my pelvis down for a minute, and you're going to take both hands, one on each side, and I want you to tuck them under your bottom until you are sitting your sits bones right on your hands. So you're going to be underneath you like this. Right? So feel those sits bones. You might have to come up on to your tippy toes in order to really feel those sits bones. And pregnant people and partners, you can both do this just so you can feel what I'm about to show you. All right, keep your hands under there. I want you to think about the standard position that you see on TV when people are giving birth, right? Typically, when somebody's in the movies or on TV, they're giving birth with they're lying on their back. We're not going to lie on our back for this exercise. We're going to stay upright. But their knees are wide apart. And maybe that makes sense in your brain to say that, well, if my knees are apart, I'm giving more space for the baby to come out. But I want you to keep your fingers on those sits bones, and I want you to widen your knees apart. What do you feel happening to these sits bones when you widen your knees apart? Well, you probably feel these sits bones close in. So knees wide apart actually is counterproductive, particularly during pushing, because knees wide apart is going to make the outlet of the pelvis more narrow. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to take your knees. They may be apart like this right now, but what I want you to do is I want you to bring your knees together and rotate them in. So knees together and rotate them in. You might notice that your feet go out to the side when you do that, and that's okay. Keep your fingers underneath those sits bones. What do you feel happening to the sits bones when you rotate your knees together and like you kind of turn the femur bone, the top leg bone in? Well, what you feel is the sits bones actually widen. So knees together actually allows more space in the outlet. That's particularly important during pushing, because if you're lying on your back, you are not giving gravity any opportunity to help you or help the baby. You're also lying on your sacrum, so sacrum can't pop out. And if your knees are apart, you just major the outlet even more narrow, so it's shortened here. So you're making pushing extra hard. We don't want anything harder during labor, right? So being more upright, gravity is going to help you. Being in a squatted position, knees together, rotate that femur, that upper leg bone internally, and what you'll see is you've got plenty of extra space in the outlet of the pelvis. So you've got the ability to change the space of the pelvis and let your pelvis do the job that it was designed to do.